This is Jones with CRT Gaming Podcast, episode number 7. This week is Dazpick's Castlevania Halloween Special.
How about you?
Joining me this evening are some good friends of mine. Gohan, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Awesome. Ready to hunt some vampires.
Excellent. I'm going to hand this over to the one guy that I know is jazzed as can be about this. So, Dazpick, it's Castlevania, it's Halloween. What you got for us?
I want to start with the fact that I absolutely love this series. And I also want to say that in the last episode, I mentioned that I played them all. And upon closer inspection, I found that I have not played them all. I played a lot of them, but holy shit, there's way too many of these games. Yeah, it's an insane amount of games in this series, and there's a lot of shovelware in there, but the ones that I did play that I enjoyed, I loved them immensely. My first experience with this game was when I went over to a buddy's house back on the old NES, and he had Castlevania. I'd never heard of it, never played it. Sat down and started getting my ass kicked repeatedly. But something about it, the music, the monsters, the fact that it was a guy fighting vampires with a whip, I was like, man, this is freaking great. And I asked him if I could borrow it. I took the game home, and I was meeting up with him the next morning with his family. But I started playing that, and I played the game the entire night. I couldn't put it down. And blasted through, getting my ass handed to me, but still powering through. And beat Death, Frankenstein, Mummy, all that shit. And I get to Dracula. And my mom had bought me some red licorice from Sam's Club. And I was sitting around shoving that in my face while I was playing this game. And I get to the Dracula fight, and I'm getting my ass beat. And finally, it starts to all come together in the wee hours of the morning. And I go into it, and I go getting through the fight, and I'm starting to, pick up the pattern. I'm like, all right, I got this guy. It's going down. And sure as shit, I beat Dracula. And I started cheering. I set the controller down and grabbed some licorice to start eating. And then that son of a bitch changed into that Leviathan form. And by the time I realized what the hell was happening, he stomped on me twice, killed me, and I was in awe and shock. And then that was it. I had missed the continue point, and the game ended, and I had to give it back to my friend, and I just couldn't ever play it again to that point after that. But I was devastated. But I wanted to play more of those games every time that I saw one came out. But I'll never forget that moment. Because I didn't know that was going to happen. Back then, there wasn't internet to look at information on what's going to come next, or any walkthroughs or any shit like that. So all of a sudden, this guy turns into this giant monster and just murdered me, and that was the end of my fucking game. I was pissed. A few years later, the very next year, Simon's Quest came out, and a friend of mine told me about it, and
the Nintendo Power cover with Simon holding like Dracula's head was definitely a high watermark for excitement.
And some people, I'd heard mixed things about it. People were saying it's really easy, and I sat down and I borrowed it from a friend of mine, and I started playing through it. And I started playing this game again recently. Started playing both of these again, and I remember Castlevania is still just as hard as I remember. But Simon's Quest, as we mentioned in the Strider 2 episode, has no fail condition. If you die, you just come right back where you were, which is nice because it's an adventure game and you don't want to lose all your progress. But they changed it into basically what is now considered a Metroidvania, where you're chasing around items, getting powered up, and talking to people was a new thing, especially for that. How it changed from just a straight up action game to a quest was awesome. And yeah, it was easy, but there wasn't a lot of information to go on. You really had to get everything you got from the cryptic little clues that came from the people you talked to in the game. And there's not a lot to go on because it was like 4 lines of text. And it was like, hey, there's a clue at this place. Which...
It's been a very long time since I've played that. How deep does the inventory get in that? I mean, compared to something like Symphony of the Night, which is like...
No, not that deep.
Just like a couple items or something?
No, I'd say there's 2 rows and probably about, there's probably about 16 items or so.
Okay.
Maybe it's like anywhere from 10 to 15 or 16, something like that. But overall, like, again, the music, Castlevania is really, really freaking good.
Simon's Quest, when it came out, it came out kind of around the same time that Zelda 2, The Adventure, of Link came out, and both tried to kind of questify, their games, right? In Zelda 2, you would get all these cryptic, bits of information from the villagers, and you do the same thing in Simon's Quest. But yeah, I mean, it had probably, 20 different items that you could use. A lot of them were like tools, to kind of explore the world.
Yeah, like for your whip, you have to go and find the person that's selling the upgrade. You don't just grab a couple, break a couple candles and get a new whip upgrade. So you have to go collect hearts and build up your money, which is hearts, to buy items from people that you have to find in the game world. But it's very cryptic, but man, I'm still enjoying it. And I think I've got one of the items from Dracula already. And this was interesting. This is how the game plays out. So in the very first area, the first castle or whatever you go to, you get to this, the orbs that drop and you beat a boss in all the other games. An orb would drop and that would be the thing you needed. Well, in this one, the orb is just sitting there, but you can't interact with it unless you find this dude that's selling an oak steak somewhere in the castle. Now, he's only maybe 2 rooms away, but you got to find him before you can interact with it. And then when you get it, then you can go stab the orb and get the Dracula's rib, which acts as your shield in the game. But all that little stuff was just really cool, especially back then. Back then we just had like Metroid and like you said, Adventure of Link or whatever. But I really enjoyed it. And I remember when I got it, I beat it one night. Because again, there really is no fail condition. You just sit down and plow through it. But I really enjoyed the hell out of it. And then apparently, a couple of years later, they released Dracula's Curse, which I completely missed. And I've heard nothing but great things about it. But Gohan, have you played this one?
Yeah, Dracula's Curse, was something that came out after, the first 2 games had set a few standards, right? The first one was all about this kind of linear levels and taking out the boss at the end of each one of the levels. It was super satisfying and arcadey. And Simon's Quest was the game that tried to questify, and make more of an adventure happen with, the movement, from the first game. The third game, Dracula's Curse, when it came out, it tried to kind of synthesize both of those things a little bit. So it definitely has more of the kind of arcadey progression of the first game, but it did kind of bring more adventure elements to it and branching paths. I think, the big addition that Dracula's Curse brought to the Castlevania series were, unlocking the cool, characters that Simon could kind of morph into and their unique abilities.
I just started playing that one, and I got to the point where I think there's a thief that you get.
Yes, Grant Dynasty.
Dynasty.
I mean, this is what it was said in the instruction manual. I can only assume that this is, lore that is verified by Konami. So,
well, I think he appeared in. Christ, I played so many games this week. I don't remember which game I saw him in. I don't remember if it was in Symphony or if it was another game. But anyway, there was a boss fight where the 3 characters from that game show up. And I was like, oh shit, look at that. And I wouldn't have known who they were except that I had just unlocked that thief guy, Grant. And I saw him climbing around the damn ceiling. I was like, oh, so that's what you do with that guy. From Dracula's Curse, then we went on to Castlevania IV, Super Castlevania, which I played a little bit, not this week. I played it before, but I know Jones got a chance to mess around with it because that was his pick this week.
It's basically like a bigger and better, you know, depending on your like nostalgia factor as to how much you enjoyed the original Castlevanias. It was just like a bigger, better Castlevania. Kind of had the same type of gameplay as the older Castlevanias with a couple new mechanics. One thing that was really cool was, since it was a 16-bit title, the music got amped up a lot in comparison to the older titles, which was really cool because a lot of the music, basically from then, or even the older titles itself, is kind of always carried forth throughout the series. And then it really starts to get amped when you start getting into the CD media games.
Yeah.
But it was really good. I did enjoy it. I got about a little bit halfway past the 4th level. And that's when the first like mode 7 like tricks start happening in the level, where the level kind of rotates.
Yes.
Which back then was always cool, like because like mode 7 was like the new thing, and then like when the game did something that used it, it was like, oh, look how cool this is.
Yeah, the new hotness.
Yeah, it was the new hotness.
And those tricks, work well with, the kind of bionic commando style, like whip mechanic, where you're kind of rotating around and hoisting yourself up on things with the whip.
Yeah, you're able to whip and like catch rings and do like some like pitfall jumping in it. There's one thing I kind of liked about the whip, like you could actually like whip like you normally would, where you attack a creature, or you can kind of do like this limp whip, where you just kind of like just basically flashing it around, not really swinging it, but you can block stuff like close to you.
Just a little twirl.
Just a little twirl of the whip.
Yeah, that one. They also added the where you can actually whip at angles, like straight up below you. If you jump, you can whip underneath you and at an angle.
That is correct.
Which was really nice, and I wish more of the games had that.
Now, I don't remember, did the older Castlevanias, you couldn't like level up like a weapon? Like, for example, if you picked up an axe, could you level that up? Like,
there was a drop that you would pick up that was marked like a 2 or a 3, and it would make it, I think, either stronger.
You could throw 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how it worked in this game. I just can't remember in the originals how it worked, or if it even existed.
Yeah, I think in Super it did the whole whip kind of progression where you upgrade the whip, but all of the other weapons are, special weapons where you get the modifiers where you can throw, 3 holy waters in succession.
Yeah, now, there's one thing I kind of wished, like the later games I did this, but this game did not. Like, one of my little things I always get frustrated with, because it's kind of like any game, like once you get powered up, you can power through it, but then like when you're powered up, it is removed from you. It's like you're starting over almost.
Yeah.
So like, I really hate it. Like my favorite weapon is like the boomerang cross. Like that's my go-to. That's what I want. And sometimes I'd get playing too fast, and then all of a sudden, I picked up an axe. I just kind of wish the cross would fall, so I could, go, oh, oops, let me pick that back up, instead of, oh,
yeah,
hey,
that was
the buyer's regret, buyer's remorse.
Well, because sometimes you jump and whip a candle, and all of a sudden it's just there.
Exactly. So you kind of got to memorize where the stuff you don't want is.
You get stuck with a crap weapon, and I noticed that a lot as I was playing through all these. The older games did that a lot, and I was like, man, this really sucks, because Symphony did not do that. It would drop, and then the other one would drop, and you could make a choice. which was nice, unless it fell into a pit and then you were like, oh well, tough shit. But yeah, that
you
is
dropped your ice cream cone.
I know.
That is a feature that I'm glad they incorporated eventually, but it was sorely missing in the older games.
Overall, I really enjoyed it. I might finish playing it. I had a lot of like normal human work I had to do this week, so I haven't got a chance to beat it. But I probably will go through and beat it just because it needs to be beaten. It had a pretty cool overworld map, kind of like as you progress through the levels. I kind of like that. It was very like detailed in comparison to the games of old. So I really liked it. The things I didn't like about it are things that carried through with other Castlevania games. Like I hate bats. I hate Medusa heads flying around.
You hate the little every time you get it and bounce back 10 feet and fall into a pit.
I do hate that, but you brace yourself for it. You kind of like, oh crap.
Yeah.
But
turn and see if you can turn around in midair so you can fall the other way. Land on the other side of them. Yeah. That was one of the things that I remember in that night that I played the original Castlevania, where especially towards the I think the death level had a lot of things where it was just bouncing you all over the screen.
Yeah, there are the huge, suited knights that threw the axes that you had to destroy, and they're bouncing Medusa heads and tiny, Igors like fleas hopping around the map. Like that level was, at least, on the school bus, growing up, that was the level. If you beat that level, you were a Castlevania expert.
Yeah, that one was pretty soul crushing that night, from what I recall. It was rough. But Gohan, you got to play one that I thought I had played. It was I thought Dracula X and Rondo of Blood were the same thing, but having recently started Rondo of Blood, it's not Dracula X.
No. Yeah, when we decided that we were going to do Castlevania for our subject matter, the first game that kind of came to mind was Rondo of Blood. Like Daz, I'm a huge Castlevania fan, going back to the NES games. And as the series progressed, through the 16-bit era, got to play Bloodlines on the Genesis, got to play Super Castlevania. But Rondo of Blood was one of those games that people who were fans of, video game magazines back then, the back chunk of the magazine was always filled with kind of like a catalog for special order stuff, especially imports and the like. And Rondo of Blood and the PC, the PC Engine was always high on the list of wants, and everyone was asking when, if and when this was ever going to come to the States. And just because NEC didn't make a big splash with the system, it kind of just stayed in the realm of imports. And when Castlevania Dracula X came out, I think people who are fans of Castlevania back then were like, oh, we're finally getting Rondo of Blood. But what they got was a game that had a lot of characteristics of Rondo of Blood, but definitely was a completely different game in some respects when it comes to kind of storyline and settings. But it's kind of like this two-faced kind of release. There's the Super NES version that has a lot of similar things, the same character, same animations, a lot of the same bad guys and, items and stuff, but, removed were some of the big, awesome features that made Rondo of Blood, so awesome.
Yeah, I had I apologize.
No, go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say that sucks.
I never personally played it, but a friend of mine had it. I used to go over there and watch him play it, just because one thing that I'm sure you're fully aware of, but like the TurboGrafx or the PC Engine, like their CD-based games always kind of really kind of pushed the boundaries, like as far as what was capable in that medium. Like there would usually always be some type of like animated sequence in an intro or cutscenes or an ending. And usually like they would do a really good job with the music soundtracks and the basically sound effects for characters. And I do remember that had some really cool, even though it's kind of still framey to look at now, but when you looked at it back then, it was kind of like a cartoon. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, after Castlevania, after Super Castlevania came out, seeing Rondo, like you said, Jones, they're, because of the CD medium, they can do bigger games and bigger features, multimedia kind of features. And, it's very kind of dated at this point, but back then they were these cool, anime cutscenes. But, Rondo just kind of improved upon everything that was in Super Castlevania, the thing that you were talking about, like the weapon cycling, where you pick up a weapon, your old weapon will drop to the ground in Rondo, and that allows you to kind of have a, better weapon cycling as opposed to being feeling like you got stuck with the bad weapon in the previous games. But
oh, sweet, I got the dagger again.
Yeah, it always felt like you got like this crappy pinata present, but in this game you could kind of, hot swap, the weapon, off the ground. But, once again, like you're saying, because of the format, like the Red Book audio, I mean, Castlevania is like the series that has had like really awesome innovation when it comes to music and audio. The Castlevania 3, because it was a cartridge-based system, they could actually add to the Nintendo's functionality, by adding daughter cards, to the cartridges. And like some of the best music were from, the Konami, games that utilized a lot of this technology. And then to kind of bring things into the 16-bit/32-bit era with Rondo using Red Book audio. I mean, and some of the, in today's age, people refer to Castlevania's music as some of the best in gaming, and some of the most memorable Castlevania music tracks are from Rondo, definitely.
Yeah, the music for Castlevania is definitely defining. Like if you're aware of Castlevania, when you hear kind of like an iconic track from something, you got a pretty good idea where it came from.
Yeah, I absolutely love the music too, and going back and playing even the old ones, original Castlevania's music was great. Then Simon's Quest took that a little further, made it better, and then a little bit I played Dracula's Curse again. It was just another winner. Every freaking game that I played in the series, I loved the music on, and even got to play the solitary Genesis Castlevania title, Bloodlines. Even that one had awesome music. And one thing that they added in that game that I always loved was, back when Sega was around, one of the big defining things on it was it wasn't scared to show blood and gore. And so anytime that they got a game that was for their system, they would always kind of set it apart with a little bit of a splash of blood here and there. And Bloodlines is no different. When you kill a zombie with your whip in that game, they splatter all over the floor in a big bloody mess. They get split in half, and there's just gore everywhere. It's like, oh, thanks, Sega. I love you.
No, there is kind of like an Evil Dead quality, to the gore.
It's completely ridiculous. I love it. And I played that one back in the day, and I touched on it a little bit this week, just to remember how much I enjoyed it. And again, the music, the gore, and all that stuff. But I remember I beat that one back then, and it was great. But it was the only one that came out on Genesis, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, the Genesis, Castlevania, and Contra games are kind of the dark horse releases, in those series. I felt that the Nintendo releases of those games were kind of like the show ponies,
Yeah.
But, I mean, Bloodlines is really, really good. And also kind of like Rondo, there's a lot of really memorable music in a Castlevania Bloodlines game for Genesis.
Then after Bloodlines came out, the next one that I played was Symphony of the Night. And that's the one that I focused on this week. And when I got this back in the day, like Gohan was talking about, back in this time, the game magazines had all those sections in the back for the import games. Around this time, I was really notorious about ordering any import that I could for my PlayStation. Any chance that I could, I would grab one. Especially because I had a Japanese Sega Saturn as well, and so I would always order import games. When I saw Symphony of the Night, it was a new Castlevania game that came out, I snatched that thing up in a heartbeat. And I still have the game, and it came with the soundtrack disc from like just a collection of all the Castlevania music that was around. And I would play that shit in the car. I'd listen to it nonstop.
Not to interrupt you, Dazpick, but maybe a lot of people don't realize back when these games came out, like you could literally import a game from Japan that would be having a U.S. release, and you would have it like 6 months or to a year early before it ever released here.
Yeah, or longer.
Or longer, yes.
So there was the big games that you really wanted to play, it was very tempting to get them early.
It was, and that had its downside because Symphony was, while I did get it early, it was in Japanese. So I had no idea what the hell anybody was saying other than the fact that it sounded really cool. And I really enjoyed it. And I was going through my memories of this, and I remember I did finish the game. But I also recall that I was stuck on it for a while. And that was because you had to get these glasses to do the inverted castle bit. And this was around the infancy of the internet, I think. And I actually think I found it online, how to do that or what item it was. But I ended up beating the game. Still had no idea what the hell was being said until years later when the American version came out and I heard the have at you and a miserable pile of secret. Yes, the extremely dramatic reading. But I poured so much time into that game, trying to unlock every section of the map and finding every little item, and just how the game's changed from the platform arcade action to the what's considered Metroidvanias now was incredible. And Symphony for me it was beautiful to look at. The animations were smooth, the artwork was awesome, the music was incredible. I still listen to the music. Hell, I've still been playing the game on and off for years on different systems. I've had it on the Xbox 360, then that carried over to the Xbox One, and I played it on there. Got this thing on PlayStation 4 as well. I think I had it on PlayStation 3. I bought the damn thing every opportunity that I got, and I absolutely love it. And
yeah, I think when I came back from college, Daz, I saw your import copy of it, and immediately just started counting the days down to the American release. It was awesome seeing a sneak peek at your apartment way back when. That's
still one of the gems in my collection of stuff. And I actually, it came with this incredible art book, and I took it to my office where we had a large format printer, and a friend of mine printed out a huge 4-foot cover of the game with no type or anything on it, just the artwork. And that's sitting in my office, and it looks awesome. Just a giant Alucard sitting over my shoulder. But yeah, Symphony, I just beat it again the other day, and then I finished it again today. Finished unlocking the rest of the items. I think I'm at about 190% on the map.
Well, I mean, that's just it. It's like there's just so much there, right? There's so much in that game. It really was kind of the complete package. I got to, buy the U.S. version of it, when it came out, and
Have at you.
I mean, there was just so much awesome game there, and plus the big switch, where the castle gets flipped. And for me, I was such a huge Super Metroid fan, and that came out. There was enough time between when Super Metroid came out and when Symphony of the Night came out, and it just felt like the next kind of version of that 2D shooting, platforming kind of plus melee, sandbox.
Absolutely, man. I remember when Super Metroid came out, I got it. I was at my apartment with my other roommate at the time, and I ended up playing that damn thing for 14 hours. The first time I plugged in the cartridge. And I looked and it was like, I don't know what time in the morning it was. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I need to get some sleep. This is amazing. And Symphony was the same effect. I couldn't stop playing it. Every time I came home from work, I just plugged that thing in and just start cranking away on it. And
well, because it lets you do different. There's a lot of, besides the awesome, first, version of the map and the second version of the map it gave you as the player all these abilities to spec out your version of Alucard for your play style. So it wasn't just cool to kind of beat the game, but you could also respec your character. There is kind of like this Dark Souls quality about it, where there is enough there for you to customize to make kind of how you played the game different and meaningful.
Yeah, like the teleport spell, and then you could do like the 3 fireballs that Dracula does. Having special like Street Fighter key combos in there to do special moves was awesome. And that's just something that I found recently that I didn't find when I played it the first time. Again, because it was all in Japanese. I didn't know that there was hidden moves in those menus. But yeah, that game is. It was amazing, and it still is. And I was looking through just to kind of see how it was received back then, and I found a GameSpot review of it. And the last line of this thing made me happy, because I totally agree with it. It says, Symphony of the Night is easily one of the best games ever released, and a true testament to the fact that 2D gaming is not dead by any stretch of the imagination. The game is very large and will keep you entertained for a long time. And the fact that I've been playing the same game on and off for years now, it speaks to that. It is phenomenal. And again, finished it today. I'm still going back and playing the same thing. My kids are watching me play it, and my daughter's getting all interested in it. She wants to start playing.
Yeah, and plus it definitely got a big kind of boost in the arm with the television series, right? So
yeah,
it's interesting to see that Castlevania is still kind of moving forward, and new generations of people are getting to see what it's all about.
Yeah, because it took a dark turn there for a while after Symphony of the Night.
Oof, we're talking N64. These are dark times for our good friend Castlevania.
Yeah, things went south once they're like, hey, because I'm pretty sure they made money on Castlevania because it's a pretty damn good game. They just started churning shit out every chance they got, and that's why when I looked, all of a sudden there's like 30 some odd Castlevania games that I didn't even know about. I'm like, holy crap, what is this? And then I remember playing a lot of the 3D ones that just weren't any good, which was unfortunate. Because as much as I wanted the N64 one to be good, and believe me, I put the time in, it just wasn't. It's sad.
Well, I think that's where there became this kind of upswing, because there was a series of really good handheld Castlevania games that
yes,
definitely were more true to form with what made the series popular in the first place.
Yeah, I found a bunch of those that I missed that I'm actually going to go back and play now, because some of them are apparently up there with how good Symphony was. I'm like, holy shit, if something's as good as that, I definitely need to play it. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. It was nice to discover that there was things I missed that are actually good, because I definitely had, felt things took a dark turn there for a while, but things to look forward to still. So it's a nice little upswing, up note there. But all right, so overall, what'd you guys think of the ones you played? You good with them?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think, with the games that, the three of us picked, these are always going to be, I think, within the top 5, of Castlevania titles for the fans of the series. Rondo was a game that, I played afterwards. I played Symphony the night first, and due to the magic of the internet, I was able to play, Rondo a couple years later. And I think that both of those games are just really two of the most successful games in any series back to back. So yeah, I feel good about my pick for this week.
Jones?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Super Castlevania as well. I haven't played it probably since I owned a Super Nintendo, and it was a good time. It was a fun platformer. It wasn't overly difficult. I just didn't have time to get further in it than I wanted to. But yeah, I really liked it. I like the just kind of like the throwback, the gothic, dark kind of feeling you get from the Castlevania games, which there wasn't really a whole lot of. I guess it would be considered horror, maybe, but there wasn't a whole lot of that to be had back in those days.
But yeah, it was like a unique kind of blend of horror and fantasy, and plus like American movie kind of culture, right? With like the famous monster Dracula horror, Frankenstein horror, and those films.
Cool. Well, I gotta say, after picking Sparkster and doing that to you guys, I feel good that we could actually talk about something that I enjoyed and you guys both enjoyed, and it is one of my favorite of all time. So that being said, I'm gonna hand it back to Jones so we can talk about what's coming next.
Okay, well, we kind of went through this Castlevania here, kind of as something Dazpick wanted to do, as well as something for Halloween. And I think everybody enjoyed it and had a good time. Kind of going with this little theme where we're kind of going to basically do little specials, something we haven't done since we started. And basically, I've thought about this, and this is kind of really far out there from what we've done so far. But it's my special. It's my choice. And this is how it's going down. We're recording this on, right now it is October the 2nd. And on October the 2nd, Star Wars Squadrons comes out. So what I'm thinking is we do basically we're going to do like a reaction. We don't normally do these, and see how everybody enjoys it. I hope to God everyone likes it. I'm going to be so disappointed if we don't.
You're building it up too much.
I don't know, I'm scared.
That CG trailer is pretty amazing, man.
Oh, it's got to be good, because the Battlefront Star Wars, the one little mission on the PlayStation 4. It was like a tease. If that's somehow good, better than this, I am going to be irate. I may kill somebody.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if the little free thing that they gave away is better, there's no fucking way. There's just no fucking way. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So.
Excellent. So, not sure how we're going to do this yet, but we will solve this problem and figure it out. So stay tuned for that and see if we are happy, or if, I don't know, I got a noose around my neck somewhere. So, until then, This is Jones with CRT Podcast, and we will catch you next time.
See ya.
Yeah.